My name is Kimberly, and I am 54 years old. Up until that moment, I had believed I had the perfect life. A devoted wife, a present mother, always putting everyone else before myself, suppressing my own dreams while raising our brilliant daughter, Amelia. The restaurant buzzed with chatter and laughter, the scent of roasted chicken and garlic bread filling the air as friends and family toasted her graduation. Then Gregory spoke, breaking the rhythm of celebration with a voice too calm for the chaos it caused. I've decided to start a new life without you. Glasses froze mid-air, conversation stalled, and 50 eyes turned toward me, expecting tears, screams, or a dramatic exit. I took a deep breath, let a small smile curve my lips, and said, "Congratulations on your honesty." Amelia's eyes widened, her cap slightly tilted as confusion and horror danced across her face, but I maintained my composure. Across the room, Cassandra, his much younger girlfriend, squirmed at the back table, a smug expression faltering as she realized I wasn't the woman everyone expected. I had spent decades supporting Gregory through failed businesses, endless career changes, and his constant, soul-searching phases, sacrificing my ambitions for his comfort, raising Amelia in a world where love and security were tied to my own quiet endurance. I reached for the cream-colored envelope tucked inside my handbag, my hands steady, my heart calm despite the storm. The room held its collective breath as I placed it beside his plate with deliberate grace, the metallic clink of silverware suddenly loud in the tense silence. Friends exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the drama unfold, whispers of disbelief traveling like wildfire through the crowd. Gregory's triumphant smile faltered. He leaned forward, curiosity and irritation twisting his face. "What's this?" he asked, voice tight, the room silent except for the faint scrape of a chair. I met his gaze without flinching. "Something for you to read later," I said softly, the calmness in my voice sharper than any anger. I kissed Amelia on the cheek, whispering, "This day is still about your accomplishment." Her hand found mine, trembling, and I squeezed it, anchoring her to the moment of joy we had fought so hard to reach. I could feel the stares of lifelong friends piercing me, some shocked, some uneasy, as they realized I wasn't going to perform the breakdown they had anticipated. Cassandra shifted uncomfortably in her seat, glancing at our friends, perhaps expecting them to intervene, yet they remained frozen, complicit in silence. Every element of the room, the polished silverware, the flickering candles, the soft glow of string lights overhead, became a stage for what I had planned, a quiet reclaiming of power in the face of betrayal. I stood, smoothed my dress, and addressed the stunned assembly. "Please enjoy your meal," I said, my voice calm, firm. "I wish. Well, let's just focus on Amelia today." The tension lingered, palpable, yet controlled, as everyone returned to their places, unsure of how to respond to my defiance. I thought back to the nights I had lain awake, debating whether I was strong enough to confront this, whether my dignity could survive the public humiliation. Memories of sacrifices, of silent tears shed behind closed doors, of personal dreams postponed to stabilize Gregory's ambitions, flooded me. And yet, despite the hurt, there was clarity, an understanding that for the first time, I wasn't a victim of circumstance but a woman in control of her own story. That envelope contained more than paper. It held strategy, foresight, and a chance to shift the narrative, to take power in a room that had been built around other people's expectations. I could see Gregory's jaw tighten, a subtle tremor betraying the composure he tried to project. Cassandra's lips pressed together, eyes darting nervously. The entire room seemed to wait for a catastrophe, but none came. As I returned to my seat, I noticed subtle details. The way Amelia held her diploma, trembling fingers clutching the rolled paper, her nervous glance at her father. I remembered how we had celebrated small victories over the years, each milestone a testament to perseverance and quiet resilience. I felt a wave of pride wash over me, mingled with sadness, for the life I had sacrificed, the moments stolen by his betrayals. Yet, in that silence, a powerful realization anchored me. I could control my narrative, shape the aftermath, and redefine strength on my own terms. Gregory's eyes met mine once more, confusion and irritation mirrored by an underlying fear I could sense but he couldn't articulate. The room returned to clinking glasses and tentative conversations, yet the energy had shifted irrevocably. My calm defiance spoke louder than any shouting could, a subtle warning that I was not to be underestimated. Friends exchanged cautious glances, and even Cassandra seemed uncertain, her usual confidence undermined by the quiet authority I projected. Amelia leaned into me, her hand still clutching mine, as though grounding herself in the reality of her mother's strength. Every observer, friend, and relative absorbed the new dynamic unfolding, aware that something profound had changed, though unsure of the exact contours of it. I felt a thrill of empowerment, a sensation both unfamiliar and intoxicating, knowing the next steps were mine to command. I remembered long conversations with my mother, late-night advice, words that had shaped my resilience. Strength was quiet, calculated, and unapologetic. That wisdom became tangible in my actions, in the deliberate placement of the envelope, in my poised presence amid chaos. I realized that power didn't always scream. Sometimes it whispered, waited, and struck at the precise moment. Gregory's smug certainty was crumbling, imperceptibly, yet unmistakably. I could see him evaluating, recalculating, realizing that he had misjudged the woman he had tried to control. Cassandra's expression shifted, doubt creeping into her gaze as she witnessed my composed defiance. The server returned, placing plates of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes before the guests, a mundane act juxtaposed against the high drama in the air. I smiled politely, accepting the meal without breaking focus, reinforcing my calm dominance. Amelia exhaled quietly beside me, relief mixing with pride as she observed her mother navigate the storm without compromise. Conversations resumed cautiously, the social dance delicate, but the underlying tension hummed like electricity through the room. Every glance in my direction reinforced my awareness. I had shifted the narrative, and nothing would feel the same again. The envelope remained on Gregory's plate, a silent agent of change, waiting for the moment it would transform uncertainty into utter astonishment. By the time dessert arrived, chocolate mousse topped with whipped cream and fresh raspberries, the energy had settled into uneasy curiosity. Eyes darted toward the envelope repeatedly, measuring reactions, speculating, whispering, yet no one dared break the spell. I reflected on the years spent managing expectations, smoothing conflicts, and sacrificing personal dreams, realizing that this moment represented more than confrontation. It was the culmination of strategy, patience, and inner strength. Every decision, every carefully chosen word had led to this equilibrium, a delicate balance of tension and control. My hand rested lightly on Amelia's, grounding her, and reminding myself of the power of composure. The hum of polite conversation returned, but every glance in the room held a question, an unspoken wonder about what was inside that envelope. I watched Gregory fidget slightly, clearing his throat, pretending to sip wine while his eyes darted toward it like a predator assessing prey. Amelia leaned closer, whispering softly, "Mom, what did you give him?" I smiled faintly, feeling a rush of empowerment. "Patience," I whispered back, my voice calm yet heavy with meaning. Cassandra's presence was unbearable, her perfectly styled hair and designer dress a stark reminder of the audacity of betrayal. She tried to mask her discomfort, subtly shifting in her seat as if hoping no one would notice my quiet power. I glanced around, noting the tension rippling through our friends. Some looked uneasy, some shocked, and others merely curious. This dinner, meant to celebrate accomplishment, had become a battlefield of quiet strength versus arrogance. I reflected on years of sacrifice, the night spent calming his insecurities while my own dreams gathered dust. My voice may have been quiet, my gestures subtle, but every calculated move tonight carried the weight of decades of suppressed ambition. The envelope represented more than a simple act of defiance. It was a declaration of my regained autonomy. I could sense Gregory's inner panic building, the carefully constructed mask of control slipping under the weight of my calm. Cassandra's smugness faltered, revealing a hint of fear as she realized the woman she underestimated was fully aware of the power she held. Amelia's grip on my hand reminded me that I wasn't alone. The bond between mother and daughter had become a fortress. Every eye in the room seemed to track the subtle shifts in energy, feeling the tension swell like a storm waiting to break. The appetizers arrived, bruschetta topped with tomatoes, basil, and a drizzle of balsamic glaze, but the aromas did nothing to diffuse the charged atmosphere. I took a bite calmly, savoring the crisp bread and tangy flavors while keeping my gaze locked on Gregory. He tried to look composed, engaging in small talk with nearby guests, but his discomfort betrayed him. I had prepared for this moment for years, mentally rehearsing every word, every gesture, ensuring my dignity remained intact. Cassandra's eyes flicked toward him constantly, seeking reassurance, but his furtive glances betrayed the doubt creeping in. Amelia shifted in her seat, quietly observing, learning that strength wasn't always loud, it was deliberate and patient. Every second passed like a measured heartbeat, a drum signaling the slow rise of tension. As the main course arrived, a perfectly roasted chicken with garlic mashed potatoes, I noticed subtle details. A friend nervously clearing their throat, a cousin glancing repeatedly toward the envelope, everyone subconsciously aware that the night had shifted into a game of observation. Gregory's fingers drummed lightly on the table, a restless rhythm betraying his inner turmoil. Cassandra tried to engage in conversation with others, laughter forced and uneven, but her discomfort was palpable. I reminded myself that composure was a weapon. Every measured action reinforced the balance of control I now commanded. Amelia's proud yet anxious gaze met mine again, grounding me in the reality of our shared victory. The envelope remained untouched, a silent agent waiting for the precise moment to change the course of the evening. I recalled the countless times I had foregone personal desires to support Gregory, the nights spent working quietly while he sought recognition, the years of selflessness that had shaped my patience. Tonight, that patience became a form of power, a weapon honed in silence. Every breath I took reinforced control, every glance was calculated, signaling awareness and quiet dominance. Gregory's once confident posture subtly shifted, the tension tightening around him like a noose. Cassandra's confident mask cracked ever so slightly, revealing glimpses of doubt and fear. Amelia remained still beside me, absorbing the lesson of quiet strength, learning the profound impact of deliberate action. Friends whispered softly, trying to process the shift, their curiosity building. The room, once filled with celebration, now resonated with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken drama. I sipped my wine, allowing the taste of cherry and oak to ground me while observing the subtle cracks forming in Gregory's composure. The envelope symbolized more than confrontation. It was a meticulous plan executed with calm precision, a reclaiming of power long denied. I sensed the shift in energy, a gradual acknowledgement that I had taken control of the narrative. Cassandra's attempts at subtle manipulation faltered under the weight of my unwavering calm, each failed gesture reinforcing my dominance. Amelia's quiet admiration was palpable, her eyes wide as she realized the depth of her mother's strategy. Friends remained cautious, the room thick with curiosity, unsure when or if the climax would unfold. Each passing minute intensified the suspense, the anticipation like a taut string ready to snap. By dessert, the tension had not diminished. It had transformed into an electric charge, a mix of curiosity, awe, and discomfort. Gregory's hand hovered near the envelope, indecision etched across his face as he weighed the unknown against his pride. Cassandra's posture stiffened, a subtle tremor betraying her unease as she watched the scene unfold. I remained serene, a quiet anchor in the storm, the embodiment of calculated restraint. Amelia's presence reminded me of why I had endured and persevered, the lessons of dignity and patience passed from mother to daughter. The chocolate mousse in front of us seemed almost irrelevant, its sweetness overshadowed by the dramatic tension. Friends exchanged cautious glances, conversations hesitant, aware of the undercurrent of power shifting subtly across the table. Every element of the room had become part of the stage, each detail a brushstroke painting the slow, deliberate drama. The moment to act arrived as Gregory reached for the envelope, his fingers brushing the cream-colored paper, trembling ever so slightly. I felt a surge of anticipation, the culmination of years of suppressed frustration and carefully planned strategy. Cassandra's eyes widened, a flash of panic breaking through her composure, realizing the tide had turned. Amelia held her breath, sensing the climax, her small hand gripping mine tightly. I met Gregory's gaze, letting a subtle smile convey confidence and quiet warning. The room fell into suspended animation. Even the servers paused in their movements, sensing the tension. Gregory finally tore open the envelope, unfolding the contents with a mixture of arrogance and hesitation. What he saw made his eyes go wide, his carefully cultivated smugness shattering in real time. He shouted, a mixture of rage and disbelief, the words echoing across the room. "How did you?" His voice trembled, unsteady, a testament to the precision of my planning. Cassandra recoiled, stepping back, her confidence utterly eroded as friends watched, stunned. Amelia's gasp was audible, a mixture of awe and astonishment at her mother's quiet yet decisive power. I remained seated, calm, letting the drama unfold without interference, each second reinforcing the lesson of deliberate control. Friends whispered, trying to piece together the events, the envelope a symbol of my regained authority. Gregory's attempts to explain, to regain footing, faltered, each sentence weaker than the last. Every movement, every glance, reinforced that the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. I recalled the countless nights of quiet planning, of imagining a moment where I could reclaim control, where patience and foresight would triumph over impulsive drama. That evening was the fruition of those sleepless hours, the manifestation of years of suppressed strategy. I felt a rush of vindication mixed with a deep, serene satisfaction, knowing the narrative was finally mine. Cassandra's failure to anticipate my composure was glaring, her expressions betraying the realization that she had underestimated me. Amelia's wide eyes mirrored my own inner triumph, a silent acknowledgement of lessons learned about strength, patience, and calculated action. Friends, once passive observers, now seemed to grasp the intensity of the shift, the subtle yet undeniable assertion of authority. The envelope had done more than provoke shock, it had rewritten the story in my favor. Every word spoken, every movement, carried weight, each second a lesson in composure and calculated strategy. I felt a strange exhilaration, a mix of relief and empowerment, the satisfaction of decades of patience finally crystallizing. Gregory's flustered attempts to regain dignity were futile, each gesture underscoring his loss of control. Cassandra's eyes avoided mine, an unspoken acknowledgement of her miscalculation. Amelia's presence, proud and anxious, grounded me, reminding me why I had endured and persevered. Friends continued to whisper, their fascination growing with each passing moment, the story unfolding like a well-orchestrated drama. I allowed the scene to linger, the silence between words amplifying the impact of every revelation. The envelope, the tool of my quiet assertion, had spoken louder than any shouting could. The room seemed frozen in time, the soft clatter of silverware barely audible as everyone processed the unfolding scene. Gregory's face turned red, then pale, as his mind raced to comprehend the contents of the envelope, each second stretching longer than the last. Cassandra's confidence crumbled further, her designer heels tapping nervously against the polished hardwood, a subtle tremor betraying her unease. Amelia's eyes shone with pride, her small hand gripping mine, a silent thank you for teaching her that courage and patience could be weapons as strong as any words. I felt a surge of vindication, the culmination of decades of restraint and meticulous planning crystallizing into this singular moment of undeniable control. Friends exchanged glances, whispering behind hands, some shocked, some incredulous, all drawn into the drama that had overtaken what should have been a celebration. The envelope had transformed the room into a stage, and I was the quiet orchestrator, the one who had turned expectation on its head. I leaned back slightly, savoring the power of composure, the thrill of witnessing the unraveling of arrogance and betrayal. Gregory's attempts to speak were clumsy, stuttering, his voice cracking as he searched for words to salvage dignity, yet none came. Cassandra's eyes flicked to our friends, desperate for support, but their frozen expressions betrayed neutrality, their allegiance silently shifting. Amelia leaned closer, whispering, "Mom, you're amazing." I squeezed her hand, a shared acknowledgement of survival, strategy, and quiet triumph. The room was tense, electricity humming in every corner, a mixture of awe and unease radiating from the guests. The server paused with a dessert tray, chocolates and raspberry coulis, sensing the lingering suspense, unsure whether to interrupt or remain still. I allowed a soft, controlled smile to form, reinforcing calm dominance, every gesture measured and deliberate. Gregory's jaw tightened, a subtle tremor betraying the recognition that his carefully constructed superiority had been dismantled with precision. I reflected briefly on the years spent managing not only his ambitions but the social theater that came with them, the dinners, parties, and milestones where appearances mattered more than honesty. Tonight, that theater became my stage, and I had rewritten the script in a way no one could have anticipated. Cassandra's discomfort grew more obvious, her posture rigid, eyes darting for any clue that the balance could shift back, but she found none. Amelia's wide eyes reflected admiration and amazement, understanding for the first time that strength could be quiet, strategic, and profoundly effective. Friends' murmurs grew, each whisper adding weight to the charged atmosphere, a subtle acknowledgement of the quiet power unfolding before them. Every detail, from the gleam of silverware to the flicker of candlelight, seemed to amplify the gravity of the moment, each element part of the orchestration I had meticulously designed. I felt the thrill of control, the quiet satisfaction of watching chaos give way to clarity under the precise application of patience. The envelope, unassuming and elegant, had become the pivot point of the evening, the silent catalyst of transformation. Gregory's gaze locked onto mine, searching, pleading, the realization hitting him that he had underestimated me in every possible way. Cassandra's eyes flickered with fear and disbelief, a silent acknowledgement that her calculated presence had failed to intimidate or influence the outcome. Amelia's small voice whispered encouragement, reinforcing the lesson of perseverance, calm strength, and the quiet assertion of self-respect. I remained composed, letting the tension linger, allowing everyone to absorb the subtle yet undeniable shift in dynamics. Friends, once casual observers, now felt the gravity of the moment, understanding without words the assertion of authority that had quietly appended expectation. The envelope remained, untouched but potent, a symbol of foresight, strategy, and calculated power. The energy in the room was electric, anticipation hanging thick in the air as all awaited the next move. And in that pause, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph, a vindication years in the making, wrapped in the quiet elegance of timing and precision. I allowed my mind to drift briefly to the past, recalling the countless nights of self-sacrifice, of quiet planning, the careful calculation of steps that had led to this moment. Every lesson, every act of patience, had built toward the point where calm composure could speak louder than rage or drama. Cassandra's panic became more pronounced, her attempts at casual conversation faltering, the fragility of her facade exposed. Gregory's agitation became a study in contrast, arrogance crumbling under the weight of realization. Amelia's pride was evident, her admiration for my calculated poise growing with each passing second, a silent bond forming in the crucible of the evening's tension. Friends murmured softly, their curiosity and amazement mixing with subtle dread, unable to look away from the unfolding spectacle. Each second reinforced my control, each gesture deliberate, a lesson in the quiet power of patience and foresight. The envelope, simple in appearance, contained the culmination of my strategy, the key to the dramatic revelation that had shifted everything. The dessert plates arrived, rich chocolate mousse layered with raspberry coulis, but no one reached for them, the culinary indulgence overshadowed by the unfolding drama. Gregory's fingers hovered near the envelope, uncertainty and panic warring with pride and ego. Cassandra's movements betrayed anxiety, subtle yet unmistakable, her confidence eroded by my calm dominance. Amelia's eyes reflected a combination of awe and reassurance, her trust in me solidified through the demonstration of patience and strategic action. Friends whispered, caught between curiosity and social politeness, as the room vibrated with unspoken anticipation. Every glance, every subtle shift of posture, contributed to the crescendo of tension that had become the centerpiece of the evening. I maintained my serenity, each breath measured, reinforcing the quiet assertion of authority that had become my signature. The envelope waited, unassuming yet powerful, holding the final act that would cement the night's dramatic pivot. As I settled back, I felt the subtle shift in energy, the recognition that the rules had changed, that control had been reclaimed. Gregory's composure was eroding rapidly, the careful facade cracking under the weight of anticipation and the unseen strategy at play. Cassandra's confidence evaporated, leaving only nervous tension and disbelief, a stark contrast to her prior arrogance. Amelia's admiration was palpable, a mixture of pride, awe, and newfound understanding of the quiet strength her mother wielded. Friends observed, intrigued and unsettled, aware that the evening had transformed from celebration to a masterclass in deliberate poise and strategic patience. Each detail, the faint hum of air conditioning, the shimmer of candlelight, the stillness of cutlery, amplified the gravity of the moment. My satisfaction grew, tempered by restraint, as I prepared for the culmination of the drama. The envelope, now central to everyone's focus, held the revelation that would forever alter perception, a quiet but seismic shift waiting to unfold. By the time the clock ticked toward the final moments of the dinner, the room was heavy with anticipation, a charged silence that seemed to suspend reality itself. Gregory's breaths were shallow, his mind racing for control that no longer existed. Cassandra's attempt at subtle distraction failed, her nervous glances betraying every ounce of fear. Amelia's pride and admiration shone, a quiet reminder of why patience, strategy, and inner strength mattered more than dramatics or anger. Friends, observing the microcosm of tension and revelation, became part of the tableau, caught in the gravitational pull of the evening's calculated drama. I felt the surge of power, the quiet thrill of control achieved not through confrontation but through foresight and composure. The envelope sat innocuous, yet potent, holding the key to the next seismic shift. And as I observed the room, I knew that the plot was about to pivot in a way none of us would forget. The envelope sat like a small monument of anticipation, its cream-colored paper simple, yet its presence commanded the room's attention. Gregory's hands hovered over it, hesitating, his mind running through every possible scenario, every consequence of opening it. Cassandra's smirk had vanished, replaced with subtle panic, her perfectly manicured fingers tapping nervously against the table. Amelia's eyes stayed fixed on me, searching for reassurance and silently cheering my every move. I leaned back slightly, exuding calm authority, my inner satisfaction carefully masked beneath serene composure. The whispers around the table grew, voices soft, curious, and incredulous, each guest captivated by the slow burn of tension. The subtle clinking of cutlery became background noise to the unspoken drama, amplifying the anticipation of what was to come. I watched Gregory finally inhale sharply, resolve hardening in his eyes, unaware that his actions would trigger the final act of my careful orchestration. He tore the envelope open slowly, the paper crinkling faintly in the tense silence, and his eyes darted across the contents with disbelief etched on his face. Cassandra's head tilted, confused, as her confidence faltered completely, the weight of my strategy unraveling her composure. Amelia's gasp was quiet but sharp, a mix of awe and pride at the precision and impact of my long-guarded plan. Friends leaned forward subtly, trying to glimpse the contents without seeming intrusive, captivated by the unfolding revelation. My heart beat steadily, a controlled rhythm amidst the chaos I had orchestrated, every movement deliberate, every glance purposeful. Gregory's face turned crimson, then pale, shifting through shock, confusion, and panic in rapid succession. I allowed a small smile, subtle but unmistakable, to grace my lips, savoring the perfection of timing and execution. The room felt suspended, like a perfectly composed scene in a movie, each character playing their part to my design. Cassandra's attempts to regain control failed, her words hollow, her gestures clumsy, revealing the fragility beneath her outward confidence. Amelia's admiration radiated, a silent acknowledgement that strength didn't always scream. Sometimes it whispered with deadly precision. Friends whispered softly, uncertain how to react, yet unable to tear their eyes away from the slowly unraveling drama. Gregory's attempts at protest dissolved under the weight of the truth revealed in the envelope, his ego crumbling with every second. I could see the moment crystallize, the culmination of years spent planning, enduring, and patiently waiting for the right opportunity. The envelope was more than paper. It was a symbol of regained autonomy, a quiet victory, a demonstration of strategy over impulse. Amelia's hand found mine again, grounding herself in the reality that our lives had shifted irrevocably, a bond strengthened through calculated action. The hum of the room seemed louder now, each heartbeat in sync with the tension that hung like thick fog over the celebration. The dessert course remained untouched as Gregory's voice trembled, caught between disbelief and outrage, words failing to bridge the chasm I had created. Cassandra's eyes darted around the room, seeking some ally, some reassurance, only to find neutral or awed expressions reflecting my triumph. Amelia's gaze remained unwavering, the pride in her eyes more powerful than any words I could speak, a quiet testament to endurance and calculated patience. Friends attempted to continue conversations, yet the air remained thick with anticipation, a room collectively holding its breath for the next movement in the unfolding drama. I sipped wine calmly, grounding myself, letting the tension build while maintaining an aura of control, each breath measured and deliberate. Gregory's hands shook slightly as he processed the contents of the envelope, realization dawning slowly, painfully, as the plan I had so carefully crafted became undeniably clear. Cassandra's posture stiffened, her confidence eroding further with each passing second, her influence crumbling into nothing. Amelia's whispered admiration reminded me why patience, strategy, and quiet assertion were far more powerful than impulsive confrontation. By the time the plates were cleared, the energy in the room had transformed from casual celebration to high-stakes drama. Every guest remained alert, anticipating the next word, the next movement, every detail magnified in importance by the tension. Gregory's jaw remained tight, his breath shallow, a subtle tremor betraying the internal panic consuming him. Cassandra's false bravado had completely collapsed, her nervous energy radiating across the table, a visible manifestation of her realization. Amelia's hand remained in mine, a lifeline anchoring both of us in the midst of the storm, her eyes bright with admiration. Friends whispered softly, each uncertain of what might happen next, the room hanging on the precipice of revelation. I felt a surge of empowerment, the quiet thrill of control achieved through strategy rather than aggression, patience rather than chaos. The envelope, now the epicenter of attention, held the next wave of transformation, the silent promise of the ultimate pivot in the night's events. Gregory's hands hovered briefly over the envelope again, as if daring the contents to reveal themselves, and I could see the panic simmering beneath his once confident exterior. Cassandra's gaze flitted nervously around the room, her composure shredded, replaced with palpable fear as the narrative of power subtly but unmistakably shifted. Amelia squeezed my hand, her small gesture a quiet reinforcement of our bond and shared triumph. Friends leaned in slightly, whispers threading through the air like electricity, all captivated by the unfolding revelation. I maintained calm composure, every movement precise, a masterclass in controlled poise, letting anticipation swell naturally. The soft rustle of napkins and clinking cutlery seemed amplified, each sound punctuating the drama, heightening suspense. Gregory finally exhaled, slowly, realizing that any attempt to regain authority would be futile. The balance had irrevocably shifted. Cassandra's attempted intervention faltered as her voice wavered, powerless against the undeniable assertion of control I had orchestrated. I reflected on the countless years of restraint, the personal sacrifices, and the quiet endurance that had led to this moment of mastery. Every decision, every act of patience, was manifest in the calm authority I projected now, a living testament to strategic foresight. Gregory's expression, a mix of disbelief, frustration, and dawning fear, was the perfect mirror of the lessons I had learned in silence over decades. Cassandra's unease was palpable, her efforts to regain influence collapsing under the weight of my calculated presence. Amelia's admiration was unwavering, a quiet pride reflecting understanding, resilience, and appreciation for the power of controlled action. Friends observed, captivated and slightly unsettled, realizing that the evening had shifted into an unexpected demonstration of deliberate strategy. The envelope, unassuming yet potent, remained the fulcrum of change, a quiet but decisive instrument of empowerment. Every second passed with measured intensity, each heartbeat marking the slow crescendo of anticipation that had transformed the evening. The final dessert, chocolate mousse with raspberry drizzle, was ignored by all but me, a minor detail eclipsed by the storm of tension at the table. Gregory's hands finally clasped over the envelope, a sign of surrender to the inevitability of revelation. Cassandra's composure eroded further, the subtle trembling of her fingers betraying complete realization. Amelia's gaze remained fixed on me, her silent support and admiration empowering me further, reinforcing the bond and trust that had guided our actions. Friends murmured softly, all caught in the gravitational pull of the evening's carefully orchestrated drama. I let a subtle smile grace my lips, an acknowledgement of triumph achieved without loud confrontation or impulsive anger. The envelope was more than paper. It was the culmination of strategy, patience, and calculated assertiveness, a tangible embodiment of lessons learned over decades. The room's energy pulsed with anticipation, every eye trained on Gregory as he confronted the undeniable truth before him. Gregory finally unfolded the contents of the envelope fully, his hands trembling slightly as the words, diagrams, and documents became clear. Cassandra's confident posture crumbled completely, her eyes widening as realization dawned, the carefully curated image of control evaporating instantly. Amelia leaned closer, her small hand gripping mine tightly, her wide eyes reflecting admiration, awe, and relief that the woman who had guided her life could command respect in such an astonishing way. Friends whispered softly, leaning in, unable to resist the magnetic pull of revelation unfolding in front of them. I remained calm, letting the drama crescendo naturally, every gesture measured and intentional, a masterclass in patient, quiet dominance. Gregory's face shifted through disbelief, anger, and finally resignation, the envelope having demolished every assumption he had about my reaction. Cassandra's attempts at intervention were feeble, each word stumbling against the wall of composure I had built so meticulously. The room seemed suspended, breaths held collectively, all eyes focused on the unfolding spectacle, the tension almost tactile. Every memory of silent endurance, nights spent balancing his ego with my own suppressed ambitions, came rushing back, a cascade of lessons and calculated patience. The envelope was more than a simple document. It was a culmination of years of strategic restraint, planning, and quiet assertion. Amelia's gaze never wavered, learning firsthand that patience, strength, and subtle control could overpower arrogance and betrayal without a single raised voice. Friends leaned closer, their curiosity and disbelief mingling with awe, sensing the careful orchestration behind every move. Gregory's panic became almost tangible, his breath shallow, his mind racing for a solution that no longer existed. Cassandra's nerves betrayed her with subtle tremors, her once confident mask utterly dissolved, leaving raw apprehension in its place. I sipped my wine calmly, letting the intensity wash over me, each heartbeat a reminder of the quiet power of calculated composure. The envelope, simple and unassuming, had become a tool of transformation, altering the course of the evening with perfect precision. I could feel the narrative shifting, the balance of authority irrevocably realigned in my favor. Gregory's anger bubbled under the surface, attempting to reclaim control, but every word he tried to form faltered, weak and ineffective. Cassandra's gaze darted repeatedly toward our friends, silently pleading for assistance, only to find neutral or captivated expressions reflecting the undeniable shift in power. Amelia squeezed my hand, a quiet anchor in the storm, her pride radiating, her trust in me solidifying. Friends observed in fascination, aware that they were witnessing more than drama. They were witnessing a precise orchestration of control, strategy, and emotional intelligence. I allowed my smile to linger subtly, reinforcing calm authority, the quiet satisfaction of executing a plan perfectly. The envelope remained the epicenter of attention, a silent force shaping the room's energy and dictating the unfolding drama. Every glance, every subtle reaction, reinforced that the night had irrevocably changed, and there was no turning back. Gregory's attempts to speak were fragmented, the words broken by disbelief and frustration, a testament to the effectiveness of strategic restraint. Cassandra's voice faltered, uncertain how to intervene, her presence now a reminder of miscalculation and failed influence. Amelia's admiration for my composure and foresight grew, a quiet bond of understanding and respect solidifying between us. Friends murmured softly, captivated, some exchanging glances that acknowledged the lesson unfolding before them. Strength and patience were forces greater than rage or impulsive action. I observed every nuance, every shift in posture, every flicker of fear or confusion, recognizing them as part of the story I had carefully orchestrated. The envelope had become a silent agent of revelation, each word and detail working to dismantle arrogance and reclaim authority. Even the servers moved quietly, sensing the charged atmosphere, their presence almost ceremonial in the tableau. And through it all, I remained composed, a beacon of calm, strategic power amidst the emotional storm. The chocolate mousse sat untouched in front of us, a triviality overshadowed by the gravity of the moment. Gregory's hands hovered near the envelope again, reluctant to fully accept its contents, yet unable to retreat from reality. Cassandra's nerves betrayed her with every shift, her once assertive demeanor now reduced to tentative caution. Amelia's admiration was unwavering, a reminder that the power of composure, patience, and strategy had a lasting impact beyond the immediate drama. Friends leaned forward subtly, every whisper and glance magnified by the tension, caught in the unfolding narrative. I allowed a faint, controlled smile, letting my presence reinforce authority, letting the drama peak naturally. Every heartbeat in the room felt synchronized with the unspoken tension, a living pulse of anticipation and realization. The envelope, simple yet potent, had transformed the evening into a stage where strategy and quiet power held ultimate sway. I reflected briefly on the years of endurance, the quiet sacrifices, and the patient plotting that allowed this night to unfold so flawlessly. Each decision, each act of careful restraint, culminated in a moment where subtlety triumphed over chaos, composure over impulsivity. Gregory's disbelief, Cassandra's crumbling confidence, Amelia's awe, and Friend's fascination all served as proof of the effectiveness of patient, calculated action. The room held its collective breath, every eye fixed, every ear tuned to the silent orchestration of power. I felt a surge of vindication tempered by calm, the quiet thrill of witnessing the culmination of decades of strategy. The envelope had spoken louder than any confrontation ever could, delivering clarity, control, and undeniable influence. Every second intensified, every reaction amplified the weight of the moment, as if time itself had slowed to watch the drama unfold. And in that stillness, I felt complete control, a quiet mastery of narrative and emotion. As the minutes stretched, Gregory slumped slightly in his chair, the weight of realization settling into his posture, his pride and ego eclipsed by the undeniable truth. Cassandra's attempts to reclaim confidence were futile, gestures awkward, voice shaky, a stark contrast to her earlier poise. Amelia's hand squeezed mine gently, her eyes wide and bright, a mixture of pride, awe, and relief reflecting the lesson of patience and strategy. Friends whispered quietly, some leaning in to catch every nuance, captivated by the precise unfolding of a story that had transformed a celebration into a demonstration of controlled power. I remained serene, a pillar of calm authority, observing every shift in expression, every falter of arrogance, knowing my timing and precision had orchestrated this outcome perfectly. The envelope remained the silent center of attention, its presence a catalyst for every subtle reaction and every unspoken acknowledgement of power. Every glance in the room reinforced that I had reclaimed control, rewritten expectations, and demonstrated the quiet strength of foresight and composure. Even the servers, moving carefully, seemed aware of the charged atmosphere, their movements subdued in deference to the intensity of the moment. Gregory's voice trembled as he attempted to respond, the words catching, halting, faltering under the weight of their inadequacy. Cassandra's nervous gaze darted toward him repeatedly, a futile search for reassurance, for an anchor to steady the crumbling narrative. Amelia's eyes remained on me, admiration radiating, a silent understanding of the strength, patience, and strategy that had brought us here. Friends leaned in subtly, some whispering, some frozen in awe, recognizing that they were witnessing more than drama. They were witnessing a demonstration of deliberate authority and calculated influence. I allowed a soft, controlled smile, subtle yet potent, a reminder of the quiet power inherent in patience and foresight. The envelope, unassuming yet commanding, held the key to the night's transformation, a tool that had recalibrated perception and authority in the room. Every heartbeat felt amplified, the tension almost tangible, as the room absorbed the impact of my strategic, composed execution. And in that moment, I knew the stage was set for the final revelation, the crescendo that would cement control, influence, and admiration for years to come. Gregory's shoulders slumped further, the weight of embarrassment and disbelief pressing down on him as he slowly realized he had been outmaneuvered. Cassandra's face reflected pure shock, her confident exterior completely shattered, revealing the vulnerability beneath. Amelia's hand squeezed mine tightly, her admiration palpable, a silent celebration of resilience, strategy, and quiet power. Friends continued whispering, captivated by the drama, their eyes darting between Gregory and me, struggling to understand the meticulous orchestration before them. I remained calm, a steady anchor, every gesture precise, letting the suspense unfold naturally, my control absolute. The envelope had worked exactly as intended, delivering clarity, authority, and undeniable impact. Every subtle movement Gregory made betrayed the unraveling of his pride and ego. Even the servers seemed to move in slow motion, as if recognizing the magnitude of the moment. I reflected on the years spent sacrificing, planning, and patiently waiting for the right moment, realizing that all the small, quiet choices had led to this ultimate triumph. The envelope represented more than confrontation. It was a culmination of patience, strategy, and self-respect, a tangible symbol of victory over arrogance. Amelia's gaze never left me, her wide eyes a reminder that the lessons of strength, timing, and subtle control were now etched into her understanding. Friends leaned in, captivated and slightly unsettled, silently acknowledging the power of deliberate composure. Gregory's attempts to explain or regain footing faltered, his voice cracking, words failing to bridge the chasm of authority I had established. Cassandra's eyes darted around, searching desperately for support, yet none was forthcoming, reinforcing the complete shift of power. I took a slow, deliberate breath, savoring the quiet thrill of control achieved through foresight and strategy. The envelope remained, a silent testament to patience, calculation, and the enduring strength of quiet assertiveness. The dessert remained untouched, the chocolate mousse forgotten, as everyone processed the impact of the revelation. Gregory's fingers brushed the envelope, hesitant and almost fearful, his mind racing with the consequences of his miscalculation. Cassandra's posture grew more rigid, her confidence replaced entirely by nervous energy. Amelia's eyes reflected awe and pride, her admiration unwavering as she witnessed the culmination of years of strategy. Friends whispered softly, each aware that the evening had evolved from celebration into a living lesson on the power of composure and foresight. I allowed a subtle, controlled smile, reinforcing calm authority, the quiet satisfaction of executing a plan flawlessly. Every eye in the room absorbed the intensity, the suspense hanging thick, each heartbeat echoing the subtle power dynamics at play. The envelope, simple yet potent, had transformed not only the night but the perception of everyone present. Time seemed suspended as Gregory's realization deepened, the weight of the situation pressing against him with each passing second. Cassandra's confidence had completely eroded, her attempts at casual conversation faltering under the undeniable shift of authority. Amelia's hand remained in mine, grounding us both, a symbol of trust, pride, and shared triumph. Friends leaned in, captivated, some whispering, others frozen, all witnesses to the slow crescendo of controlled drama. I maintained my calm, every breath measured, each gesture deliberate, letting the narrative unfold with cinematic precision. The envelope had achieved more than shock, it had rewritten expectations, shifted authority, and revealed the power of strategy and restraint. Gregory's attempts at explanation dissolved, words failing, gestures ineffective, his control obliterated by careful orchestration. Cassandra's subtle panic became almost palpable, a testament to her realization that miscalculation carries consequences, even in social arenas. I reflected on the years of endurance, sacrifices, and quiet planning that had led to this perfect moment. Each patient choice, each restrained reaction, culminated in the mastery of subtle power, demonstrating that composure and foresight trump impulsive drama. Amelia's eyes never wavered, a beacon of understanding and admiration, her small hand clutching mine tightly. Friends whispered, captivated by the lesson unfolding before them, recognizing the quiet authority that had transformed the evening. Gregory's panic intensified, a mixture of disbelief, anger, and humiliation radiating with every failed attempt to regain control. Cassandra's nervous energy permeated the table, her previously confident persona replaced by raw vulnerability. I allowed a faint, confident smile, savoring the culmination of strategy executed flawlessly. The envelope remained central, silent but commanding, holding the power to transform not just the room but the very narrative of the night. Then came the moment where the final layers of control and surprise unfolded, the quiet anticipation reaching a near unbearable peak. Gregory's face twisted in disbelief as he fully processed the contents of the envelope, the carefully hidden details exposing his arrogance and misjudgment. Cassandra's face mirrored shock, her earlier confidence replaced with the realization that she had underestimated me completely. Amelia's grip tightened, admiration and awe reflecting in her eyes, as the power of patient planning became undeniably clear. Friends leaned forward subtly, whispers threading through the room like electricity, captivated by the slow unraveling of the evening's drama. I remained serene, my calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around me, a demonstration of quiet strength. Every movement, every glance, reinforced the lesson that control could be achieved without raised voices or impulsive confrontations. The envelope, simple in appearance, had orchestrated the perfect revelation, altering the balance of power forever. In the aftermath, Gregory's shoulders slumped, the weight of realization pressing heavily upon him, while Cassandra attempted, and failed, to regain any semblance of authority. Amelia's wide eyes reflected a mix of pride and relief, a silent acknowledgement that strength, patience, and strategic thinking could overcome betrayal. Friends whispered softly, some exchanging glances that spoke volumes, understanding that they had witnessed a precise orchestration of control and composure. I allowed a subtle smile to linger, savoring the quiet triumph, knowing that the culmination of years of planning had unfolded flawlessly. The tension began to ease, replaced by awe, respect, and subtle admiration from the witnesses to the evening's carefully executed drama. The envelope remained at the center, its purpose fulfilled, a tangible representation of strategic foresight. Every glance, every whispered word, every pause in conversation reflected the shift that had been orchestrated, the narrative irrevocably altered. And in that room, amid whispered astonishment and stolen glances, I felt complete mastery, the quiet thrill of strategy realized to perfection. With the envelope finally opened, the room's energy transformed from suspense to astonishment, every gaze fixed on Gregory's disbelief and Cassandra's faltering presence. Amelia's small hand remained in mine, a silent bond of trust and pride, as her eyes reflected understanding and awe. Friends whispered softly, processing the careful orchestration of every detail, every gesture, every carefully planned step that led to this climax. I exhaled slowly, calm and steady, a quiet authority radiating from my composure, each breath a testament to the power of patience and strategic thinking. Gregory's attempts to respond crumbled under the weight of undeniable truth, his words failing to regain any control. Cassandra's earlier confidence dissolved entirely, her nervous glances around the room signaling acknowledgement of miscalculation. Amelia's admiration was evident, a reflection of lessons learned about strength, timing, and subtle influence. And as the tension settled, the realization hit me fully. This evening had revealed something far larger than one confrontation. It had sparked a moment of clarity that would transform life itself. For years, I had felt trapped, as if no action I took really made a difference, each day blending into the next with monotony and missed opportunity. But that evening reminded me that the smallest, deliberate actions could trigger transformation, subtle at first, then undeniable. 9 words, simple, precise, and spoken with intent, could ignite change, activate opportunities, and shift the energy around you. Suddenly, life felt different, aligned, ready to open doors I had never imagined. People, chances, ideas, all arrived at the right moment, as if the world had rearranged itself in my favor. And the best part? Anyone could do it. If you want to experience this shift too, I left a sign in the comment pinned below, and it all begins with just 9 words.